Hello there, my brothers and sisters. Vessel of Truth here, Jay from Virginia for the new people. And I want to continue onward into the notes that I have that I did the last video in. All of these are very, very important because it affects every single one of us. I want to entitle this one The Invisible War, because this deals with things that really can't be seen with your eyes. It's more spiritual than anything. But we're going to talk about the fountain that serves both bitter and sweet water. If you're pretty astute, you know we're talking about the tongue. Let's back up a little bit. How many times have you heard me say and explain and talk about us having to have self-control? Self-control is a must to be a servant of the Most High. Christ had it, and by having self-control, it made him walk sinless whenever he was dealing with other people, different situations. He knew when to speak and he knew when to hold his peace. He knew his place. We have the same ability, but it's something that we have to learn. But this is where the unlearning of people and the ignorance of people cause them problems. Because in the Word, it tells us that self-control is a fruit. It's not a gift. And I can't remember if I explained in the last video or not what the difference between a fruit and a gift was. So, a little refresher. A gift is something, of course, which is given. You didn't have to do anything for it. It was just given to you. That's all well and nice. But the Word tells us that self-control is a fruit. In other words, we know what a fruit is. It starts with a seed that you have to bury, and you have to tend it and nurture it and dung it and water it and care for it. It's the same thing in life. Whenever you're learning a new trade or something, it takes time. It takes effort on your part to perfect. So after however many years it takes you, you learn to control yourself. Your mouth isn't blabbering, you actually choose your words carefully. Sadly, that's not the way most people are. They don't want to put in the time or the effort to really learn or even control themselves because they feel entitled to cuss a person out or put a person in their place because, I will not be disrespected. Well, we don't see that anywhere in the Word except for when it was Christ dealing with the hypocrisy of the Sadducees and the Pharisees, because they were so off base, teaching a gospel that was drawing people away, and it was a false gospel. So, to everything there is a time and there is a place. But how many times have you allowed blather come out of your mouth that should have never have been? Because most of the time in today's day and age, it just makes things that much worse, to the point to where things are getting so volatile that if you say the wrong thing to the wrong person, you're liable to lose your life. It's just how bad things have got. Because the devil loves to take you farther than you want to go. And he will always capitalize on your ignorance or your pride or your arrogance. These are basic lessons that, it's the milk of the word. But yet, due to the immense failure of the four-wall indoctrination centers, people have not learned the basics. All they ever want to do is talk to hear themselves talk. But in James, we're in chapter 1. Let's read verses 19 and 20. It says, "Wherefore, my beloved brethren," that's all of us, "let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath, for the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God." I know you all have heard me say that one before, but what is he telling us here in verse 19? We should hear twice as much as we speak. We got 2 ears, 1 mouth. I know you've heard it put that way. Matter of fact, I may have said that once or twice, but if we don't temper ourselves to be swift to hear and slow to speak, slow to wrath, if we haven't fully read the word and understand spiritually what's being said, spoke of, we're not qualified to jump into a tit for tat argument and take sides. It's best just to keep your mouth shut, because the Father has no glory in bitter disputation, between two people. We see that going on, against people like myself, because we serve the Father, keeping the Torah, keeping the law, keeping the feasts, keeping the Sabbath, keeping the dietary laws. And everybody has been taught that those are Jewish laws. That's not true. The laws are for everyone. So we need to temper ourselves and truly learn our place. Think about it. Today, most people are not slow to speak. There are blabbermouths. There are people that lie just to lie. They say things just to hear them talk, and all the while they're just damning themselves to a devil's hell. And they don't have the common sense to see what they're doing to themselves. We've got to be more aware of our own actions and our own demeanor. We're supposed to be taking on the character, the nature, and the attributes of our Father through the blood of Christ. But sadly, look around in the world that we're in. Do you see that? I don't care. Look at the four-wall indoctrination centers. They're going to be the first to put you down and to argue with you and say that you're being, legalistic. Because they refuse to believe what the Word says. They're fulfilling the Scripture, of the end times, having that form of godliness, denying the power thereof. We're in a day and age where people, they don't speak, how can I say this? They don't speak to understand. They don't speak to learn. They don't even speak to trying to put it as simple as possible. Basically, people are speaking to hear their own selves speak, to try to debunk what another person is saying, to show that they're smarter, or they speak to argue. They speak to hear themselves speak, but yet they don't see the pride and the arrogance. They're just all about wanting to show that they know something. And we're supposed to be void of pride. You know, what was our enemy's main sin that started him being thrown from the heavens? Pride. And it just tickles the devil every time you pick it up and use it, thinking that you're something that you're not. You know, this generation is actually not just this generation, the past few is just totally devoid of listening. They don't respect the elders. They don't think you can tell them anything. They're more based on their feelings and emotionalism rather than allowing the Spirit of God to give them discernment, when to speak and when to shut up. And if you just go around shooting your mouth off, the Father will let you get yours, because that's sin. You know, we do everything by faith. And as I told you in the last one, you know, where does faith come from? Faith comes from hearing, hearing by the word of God, right? So we walk by faith, not to our feelings. Just because someone is belittling you or making fun of you, who cares? Look what they did with Christ. And we're to walk in his footsteps. We've been told in every book of the New Testament that we're going to suffer, we're going to be persecuted, you know, we're going to be hurt, you know, our enemies will be of our own household first, and so forth, and, you know, we'll be betrayed and thrown into prison and all these things. These are not just words on paper. He was telling us what to expect. But it gets worse. Start with verse 26. It says, if any man among you seem to be religious, and bridle not his tongue, he deceiveth his own heart. This man's religion is in vain. Think about that. You got all this stuff going. You're reading, you're praying, you're trying to help other people, and all this other stuff, but yet you're a loudmouth. You are a foul mouth. You can bless a person out. You can whatever, you know. Your mouth is totally unruled. Everything you're doing is in vain. You're not going to make it. We'll get deeper into that. Pure religion is undefiled before God. Wowzers, what a statement. Pure religion is undefiled before Yahuwah, our Father. Think about that. In other words, what we do in action and all this, it has to meet up to the Father's standards. And he even takes it up a notch. He says, to visit the fatherless and the widows, When's the last time you went to visit the fatherless or widows or those in affliction? And to keep him unspotted from the world. You have any spots on you from the world? Most do. You know, we're commanded several times to be separate from the world. But people don't quite believe that the Father meant what he said. That when he said that anyone that loves the world, the love of the Father is not in them. That's pretty blunt in my book. Dare say he means what he says. But no. For some reason, people have hang-ups there. Let's go to James chapter 3. Let's go ahead and start with verse 2. It says, "For in many things we offend all. If any man offend not in word, the same is a perfect man, and able also to bridle the whole body." Now, what did we hear over in 1? That the tongue is an unruly member? Or is that down here? Yes. Let's go with verse 5 here. "Even so, the tongue is a little member, it boasteth of great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth." You can bridle your whole body, but yet be deceived because your tongue is unruly? Are we not commanded to not let any corrupt communication proceed out of our mouth? And I love the explanation that he gives. It says, "Behold, we put bits in horses' mouths that they may obey us, and we turn about their whole body. Behold, also ships, which through they be so great, and are driven of fierce winds, yet they are turned about with a very small helm, whithersoever the governor listeth. Even so, the tongue is a little member, and boasteth great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth. And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. So is the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and it is set on fire of hell." So we know that this verse is telling us who it is that's trying to put words into your mouth and make you lose your own steadfastness with the Father. Somebody does something bad to you, that F word comes out, all the little 4-letter words. But yet you're supposedly a man or a woman of God. You just prove the point that you're not. And something that people really need to understand. If you are foul-mouthed and your tongue, just is devoid of any spiritual control from you, you will never have the power to rebuke or bind a demon, even a baby demon. And you're sure not going to talk to the Father, because he's not going to hear you. I mean, think about it. The Father is righteous and holy. Do you really think he's going to listen to a foul-mouthed half-pint that he really doesn't need because he can make another one look just like you? I mean, what good are you to him? I mean, think about this. A foul mouth is more than just cussing. Whenever you're gossiping, whenever you're mocking people, whenever you're being prideful, whenever you're making yourself out to be anything other than what you are, or bringing up other people into conversation that is nobody else's business, to a point, sometimes there's reasons, but few. You've got to learn that if you are allowing your tongue to be that way and be that unruly member, your mouth, don't expect one iota or an ounce of spiritual power to ever come out of your mouth. To rebuke a devil, to heal someone, because the Father's just not going to flow through you because you're bottlenecking it. You got one foot in Him and another foot in the kingdom of darkness. And I don't care that the world's this way or everybody's that way. Like I told you, one of the biggest things about living for the Father is learning. Never follow the masses, because most of the time the M is silent. You got the whole Old Testament that drives that into your head. Every time when the Israelites, started doing something and everybody was doing it, what happened? Father sent prophets in to try to roll them, ring them back in. And they killed the prophets, of course. And then judgment. We're no different. He told us that in Ecclesiastes, where he said there's nothing new under the sun. People love to think of themselves more highly than what they are. I know I used to. I learned real quick. Father showed me that I don't know nothing. I'm not here to exalt myself above nobody. I don't know it all, but I've learned some hard lessons, and if I can share that to help anyone, I will. Because there were some hard lessons, cost me a lot. We have to walk in habitual obedience. Not having any stumbling block whatsoever in us for the Father to flow through us. We become as Him. And this is where people get mad and they want to say I'm a heretic and all that, but we have the ability, if we choose to, walk as Christ walked. People say, that's impossible. Why? I can walk as Christ. Yep, I have that past that He delivered me from, and that person that had that past died the minute I became new through the blood of Christ. Therefore, I am now a new creation, walking fresh and new. For a certain length of time while I was learning and feasting upon the milk and then the meat of the Word, I got more and more mature and learned a lot of things. Because you begin to take on His character, His nature, His will. But you have to pursue it. Christ himself said, the works that I do, you shall do also, and greater works thereof, because I go to my Father. The whole book of 1 John is like a cheerleading thing for those who keep the law, the commandments of the Father, telling us that we can walk as Christ, but we have to choose. We have to be very carefully slow to speak. We got to cultivate the oil to have that self-control. We got to learn not to be led by emotion. And that's a biggie. I don't know what is up with the last few generations, but emotions seems to be the main driving force for a lot of people. It's like, I can understand if you're logic, critical thinking, that's all right. But just to be driven by, he hurt my feelings, or they got something better than me, and all this emotional garbage. I mean, who cares? I was telling a brother and a sister actually earlier that I've never understood jealousy. I've never been one to be jealous of anybody. It's like, hey, yeah, you got it good. I understand that the evil will prosper. I also understand that we're going to reap whatever we sow. It's a spiritual law. Be not deceived. Whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap. If a man soweth unto the flesh, of the flesh he shall reap corruption and death. But if a man soweth unto the Spirit, of the Spirit he shall reap eternal life. It's Galatians. It's like everybody has done their best to twist the truth of the gospel, to make it so much harder than it really is, and to have that defeated mentality before they even step out to try. Because see, I don't just step out of myself. When I step out, the Father is with me. Because I have faith, I know I can do all things through Him. I'm not going to try to do it myself. I know my place. I know when I should speak. I know when I should shut up. And I know when He gives me something to say. Other than that, I just don't have nothing to say. I get yelled at from all different directions for not being a motor mouth. Do you not understand that being a blabbermouth just increases the odds that the enemy is going to put something in your mouth that shouldn't come out? It's so easy to say something in the height of emotion, whether it's anger, rage, hurt, whatever. We're not supposed to be driven by that. They're secondary. Our walk is mainly the will of the Father. Everything else, secondary. But if you're not being led by the Spirit, and you're not feasting upon the Word and learning the ins and the outs of walking as Christ walked, you're not going to have a storage house full of oil to draw upon when the situation requires it. You can't wait to when you're in need to start doing what the Father said. It's too late. We have to store up before, so we'll have it when we need it. People, this might sound funny, but the Word tells us that the effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. All right. Let me break that down. It's the effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man that has a clean, godly mouth that will availeth much. Because if you don't have a mouth without corrupt communication proceeding out of it, you can't expect the Father to give you anything or move on your behalf or do anything that you say. We are 100% beholden to Him. This whole realm we live in, this is His ballpark. And it functions according to His rules. It's your choice whether you want to follow or not. Free will. But if you are going to follow, one of the first things you got to get is self-control. Shut your mouth. Stop making the work of the enemy so easy. Someone hurt your feelings. Someone called you a name. People assassinating your character. How do you think Christ felt? I mean, this all led to Him being killed, remember? All of the apostles, except for John, the beloved, they all were martyred. Killed. If you don't know what martyred means, you had Stephen was the first martyr. And sadly, you got so many people thinking that they're going to be martyred for the Father. Being a martyr for the Father is a coveted position. He doesn't let just anybody be a martyr. You might think you're living like a devil right now, but bless God, whenever the situation comes, I'm going to die for Him. You'll never get the chance. You know, the Father's thoughts are so much higher than ours. His ways are way beyond us. Do you think He didn't think about that? Well, they'll just act like a bunch of devils until somebody makes them take the choice. For spiritual strength to be in you, you've got to stop short-circuiting it with your mouth. Let's read on a little bit. For every kind of beast, of birds, and of serpents, and of things in the sea is tamed, and hath been tamed of mankind. But the tongue can no man tame. Right there is a point. If you think you're going to control your tongue by your own strength, it ain't going to happen, because if somebody comes up and does something that sets you off, immediately what's in you will come out of you. But if you have the Spirit of God in you, the Spirit of God has the ability to make your tongue cling to the roof of your mouth to where you can't mutter a word. Therefore, you don't lose your steadfastness. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. Think about that. How many people have you killed with your tongue? I know people that's killed their children, killed their parents, killed complete strangers. For what? Made you feel good? You showed them. But yet that person thought you were a child of Yahuwah. And you just showed them what being a child of Yahuwah is. You gave God a bad name. Trying to be his child, but you're just an undercover wolf in sheep's clothing. Therewith bless we God, even the Father, and therewith curse we men, which are made after the similitude, the image of God. Out of the same mouth proceeds blessings and cursings, my brethren. These things ought not to be. Does a fountain send forth at the same place both sweet water and bitter? Think about it. When you go up to a fountain to drink, do you have to gamble on whether or not it's going to be good water or bad water? So think about it. Here you are cussing on one side because you have no self-control, because you like the adjectives, the description of the word better. Never did see Christ do that. And it worked for him. Why do you got to do it? Oh, that's right, because you're claiming to be his, but really you're not. You're an undercover devil who's never matured to the meat of the word to allow it to change you. See, to be his child, it demands change. You'll find out you won't speak as much because you just don't have nothing to say. You'll no longer get in on this blabbering crap that's going around because you could care less. They were talking about someone else. I ain't got no opinion. It's on them. We think that our words are so important that we just got to, especially in this day and age with social media and garbage. Everybody's got an opinion, but the only opinion that matters is the Father's. Don't never hear people say that the only opinion that matters is the Father's. They want to tell you what they think. Don't matter if it's wrong or right. Can a fig tree, my brethren, bear olive berries? Either a vine figs? So can no fountain both yield salt water and fresh. Who is a wise man and endured with knowledge among you? Let him show out of a good conversation with works, with meekness and wisdom. A good conversation. But if you have bitter envy and strife in your heart, glory not, and lie not against the truth. This wisdom descendeth not from above. It's earthly, sensual, devilish. In other words, you ought to know this. For where envying and strife is, there is confusion and every evil work. It's a door. You got MFing and all them 4-letter words coming out of your mouth. You just slam the door wide open for anything and everything the devil's got for you to come through you. You done corrupted your whole body. And the Father kicks you back to the end of the line. Repeat, because you never learned the lesson. You conducted yourself as a fool, as the word describes. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruit, without partiality and without hypocrisy. There's a biggie nowadays, hypocrisy. Oh boy, people tell anyone and everyone about what God says or what they should do spiritually, but yet they have no clue because they're not qualified to even answer. Because they don't have no walk or relationship with the Father, but yet they can shoot their mouth off and tell somebody what to do when they're never even doing it themselves because they're a hypocrite. And the fruit of righteousness, oh boy, there's that fruit word again, telling us that righteousness is a fruit. It's not a gift. It is a fruit. In other words, it's something you have to cultivate and cultivate in that oil, that way of walking, that way of being, taking on the character, the nature, and all the will of the Father upon yourself. Is sown in peace of them that make peace. Sadly, today we got mostly warmongers. They at war with people they don't even know. That's like, people have forgot that this country, the United States of America, is supposedly to be a melting pot. But yet, I have heard so many people talk about how wrong it is to let people come into this nation. I agree to a point. In other words, if they're not coming legally, okay, there is a problem. But even at that, if the people that's coming, which most are not, good people just trying to better themselves, I have no problem with that. But whenever it might be sleeper cells for other organizations to take down the United States, which it will fall here shortly, that could be another. But all the people that, let me interject, all the people that is coming to the United States, even all those refugees and so on and so forth that have been over here for a while, that are not native born, they'll leave. Because the Father is not going to allow foreigners to be here when the judgment falls. They'll either leave or they will partake of what this nation is going to be hit with. But I guarantee you're going to see people fleeing this country fast and in a hurry before the full judgment hits. Oh, how I pray that people would learn that the fervent, effectual prayer of a clean mouth avails much. Another big one is, it's not so much men, but women. But it's not just women nowadays either, because men have become so feminized. They will run their mouth and they will get bitter and hateful and let any evil whatsoever come out of their mouth if something has happened that puts their self-esteem in jeopardy. Their own view of their self-esteem. When the fact of the matter is, any of us, no matter if it's man, woman, child, all of our self-esteem comes from the Father. It's letting the light of the Father shine through us. That's our self-esteem. We chuck our own to allow Him to shine through us. But it seems like the more time goes on, the harder it is for people to understand that it's not about us. It's not about what other people think about me, what they think about you, where they rate us in the social scale, you know, handsome, ugly, uglier in sin. It doesn't matter. None of that does. But yet, so many people have this ego of they're not showered with, oh, I love you, you're beautiful, you're handsome, you're great, you're wonderful, I couldn't live without you, and all this garbage. Because none of it matters. What matters is the Father, your relationship. Are you walking as Christ walked? Are you speaking as Christ spoke? Are you doing as Christ did? Are you cultivating the oil? Are you becoming more like Him, or are you becoming more like the devil and the world and the flesh? Are you dying to yourself? Or do you shun all the things of God to be more worldly and fleshly and devilish? You need to rein yourself in. You know, one of the biggest problems with marriages and it goes on either side, is two people were in love and they got married. And then all of a sudden, you know, you go back and you revisit that married couple again, you know, a few years later, and you find out that they're divorced. Why? Because either one or the other burnt their marriage down. They burnt their whole house down with their mouth. Because they couldn't grow up and work together. Either the woman or the man or both have all kinds of fiery poison to speak about one another. And if you have kids, think about what you're doing to them. Burn down the whole forest of your own life because of pride, arrogance, refusal to work together. Allow the Father to lead you and guide you through the ups and the downs that come in a marriage. You just get tired and you quit. Well, I'm here to tell you there's no quitters that's going to be in the kingdom. No cowards, no quitters. We're called to overcome, to endure. But people are too busy watching Fantasyland on TV or even on YouTube or all that other garbage and social media stuff. I don't even know what half of it is. I know there's that picture thing and image. Or I don't know. You know it. Maybe, I guess. I don't know. And they take that stuff in that has a spirit behind it, but it's not the Father's spirit. And they allow it into them, and it becomes the ruler of them. Women have a real hard time submitting to their man, a true man. You figure the Father set the order. God, the Father, Christ, the Son, man, woman, child. That order is unchangeable. Therefore, women, you need to submit to your husbands. I understand some men are child. They're not walking the walk. They're not leading the family where it needs to go. That's where intercessory prayer, you know, an ungodly man that is married to a godly woman, that woman's prayer for her man is what will move the hand of God on their man. But sadly, most quit. They get bitter, hateful, and then they burn down their whole existence. Corrupt the kids, destroy the whole family unit. Fact of the matter is, when you take yourself out of reach of hearing the voice of the Holy Spirit, and you're not capable of even hearing the Spirit's voice, the enemy now has the opportunity to come in like a flood. And when he comes in like a flood, any and all temptation, whether it's cussing, anger, control, whatever, porn, drinking, drugs, lying, stealing, you name it, he will come in. And because you couldn't humble yourself and submit and listen, or even get to a place where you could hear the voice of the Spirit, you fail. You habitually fail. Therefore, you can no longer walk in obedience. Because one sin usually leads to another sin, to another, to another, to another. That's why it's hard whenever you put two people that are different together. There has to be compromise. There has to be wisdom. Speaking it out. But yet, ultimately, the decision lies with the man who is hooked up to the Father. But some women have this idea like they're being slighted. The order is set by the Father because of what happened in the Garden of Eden. Women tend to use sex as a weapon. They tend to manipulate their men. They try to control their men. They try to do all kinds of devilish thing. And I am one to say that I agree with the Father that they should be put in their place where He put them. Because I understand why He did it. Not that I'm anybody. But I do understand the fallacy of humanity. I've walked it a long time. Let's go to 1 Peter. 1 Peter 3:10, yeah. For he that will love life and see good days, let him refrain his tongue from evil, and his lips that they speak no guile. Now, most people will get what it's saying, but what is it not saying? Anyone that doesn't bridle or refrain his tongue from evil is in evil. They're speaking guile. And their love is a pipe dream. So much that people need to learn. They think that it's so easy to live for the Father. It's not. It's one of the hardest things ever. Think about it. If it was such an easy thing, everybody would be doing it. But look around. There's a very, 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 very small remnant. Got to go to my favorite book. 1 John chapter 3, verse 18. My little children, let us not love in word, neither in tongue, but in deed and in truth. You have heard it said that actions speak louder than words. This is true. If you are basing a relationship on words and talk and whatever, you're on sinking sand because you don't know if any of that's true. You know, That's why I've always wondered about people that do dating sites. People get on there and they lie up one side, down the other, because they're just looking to scratch an itch that they have. And usually that's sex. That's perverse. It's ungodly. It's unholy. It's unrighteous. Just right up the devil's alley. Stop allowing people to manipulate you with their words. We all know somebody that, you've helped and helped and helped and helped. And yet, whenever you holler at them, nowhere to be found. Or they got any number of a list of an excuse why they can't help. You've got to get to the place to where you just cut off the dead weight. Everybody's worried about a stringent citizenship, going through a background check and all that to become a citizenship. They think that's a bad thing. But I'm here to tell you that the kingdom has the strictest rules and regulations to become a citizen. And if you don't like it and you want to call God a bigot or a cheat or anything else, that's between you and him. But I kind of like his policy because it works. No fakes, no phonies, no cowards, no high and mighty, prideful, whatever will be there. Because I don't want to deal with them the rest of eternity. Would you? And if it happens to be you, well, you either change or you're going to burn. It's just that way. The rules apply to us all. There ain't none of us so special or so cute or so beautiful that he's going to bypass his rules and regs for you. We all the same. He's no respecter of persons. We stand on our own merits. So if you can't live your life without falling to the temptation of your emotions or being seen in bad light or having your character assassinated or people saying bad or whatever things, then you've got problems. You need to rise above all that because none of it matters. The only thing that matters is what comes out of the mouth of the Father about you. But sadly, most people has never bothered to take the time to truly have a true relationship with him. So I'm asking you straight up, does the fountain of your mouth have both sweet and bitter water coming out of it? If it does, and you're stale and stagnant and dying, having no spiritual strength, there's your answer. Stop. Repent. Be made new again. Because the God of heaven and earth is faithful and just to forgive you if you confess and repent, turning from your wicked ways. It's where your free will comes in. What's more important? I'll leave it at that, my brothers and sisters. As always, if you need to get a hold of me, email me at jtt1777@outlook.com. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. I'm still praying for each and every one of you, and I thank you, and words fail. How much thanks and help it gives me for y'all's prayer. Anytime we step out to speak and try to help others, the enemy always does anything and everything it can to really make it hard. But I'll be fine with the Father. So I do indeed pray the blessings of the Father upon you. And I thank you all, and I'll see you all on the next one.